Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Institute for Personal Development, where total consciousness is the new frontier. Kriya Yoga is the union of the individual with the divine. Join us as we explore the practices that initiate this process.
Good morning. Welcome to the Voice of Yoga. Let's talk consciousness. I am your hostess, Lisa Winton, and with me is Kenny Toy, also known as Swami Jayananda, founder of Institute for Personal Development, located here in Hampton, New Hampshire. Well, good morning, Swami. Thank you for being here today. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing well today. How about you?
I'm doing great on this fabulous moon day, and I want to thank you listeners for tuning in to our program. Today on The Voice of Yoga, we will be talking about the winter solstice on December 21st, this year, 2015, and how to participate with the procession of light and darkness. We will discuss the integration of the two polar opposites as a means to create balance in your life. Listen as Swami explains the role of darkness as a means to obtain the light. We can't have light without darkness. They need each other. Join the Kriya Yoga Spiritual Advance to get the light in your soul and get the benefit of internal support and eternal light. We're powered by Prana. So, Swami, I guess I'm going to start by asking you, so what's going on cosmically and how do we benefit from that?
Well, cosmically what's happening is the sun goes into Capricorn, the cardinal earth sign, and of course we're now in the season of winter. And what that symbolizes is that this is actually the longest night of the year, that the whole procession of light and dark has now come to its zenith, to its high point. And then, starting tomorrow, then the days will start to get longer.
When it's funny you said when it's come to its zenith and its longest point or highest point, we can actually probably internalize that to our own selves, can't we?
Yeah, I think that's a big part of why a lot of the holidays fall around this time, especially, like what we say. Even the word holiday, I think, really originated from the concept of holy days and the whole thing of to be whole, to be a whole person, really required the integration of these different aspects of our makeup, the integration of light and dark. And, of course, the whole process, the whole concept of apotheosis, this process of the human becoming divine, is what is referred to as the spiritualization of matter. So metaphorically or symbolically, light and dark, and the concept of this ongoing struggle that goes on between light and dark, good and evil, God and the devil, has always been, I want to say, symbolized by this season of the year, because, of course, darkness is at its highest point.
I'm wondering if we can use darkness as a metaphor for things that we can't see. Like when you're a child, we're afraid of the dark. There are things that we can't see as a child, and things that go bump in the night. So we always have this, or we're brought up to have this feeling of fear of darkness. And maybe there's something more to it than just that.
Well, yeah, it's fear of the unknown. It's basic stage fright. It's taking ourselves out of what is known and moving into an area that is unknown or unfamiliar or not here yet, kind of a thing, and to have a certain sense of anxiety around that. I don't really necessarily think that that's a bad thing, and I think we did a whole show on stress and the importance of, these influences that we have, that we deal with on a regular basis, and how to employ them, how to use them. The whole key is not to be controlled by them. That somebody who all of a sudden is afraid of the dark, now all of a sudden is immobilized when it's dark, rather than being able to manage the situation and recognize it for what it is. And a big part of the practice of Kriya Yoga that we teach is really designed to develop the psychological organs so that we are not so susceptible to those influences, that we recognize that they exist, and we use them to our advantage, but we're not controlled or immobilized by them.
I was just wondering that we can take this whole light and this dark and apply it to ourselves. Like we have part of ourselves that can be of light, and then part of ourselves that can be of darkness. So if we can learn to embrace our outside world, the fact that today is going to be, the most dark it's going to be all year, that kind of darkness, to embrace that, but then turn around and embrace the darkness that's within ourselves. So if you can embrace one, like you say, you build the skill set, then you can turn it around and apply it to anything else.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And today would be a great time to turn inward and to use this time for self-exploration, to turn your attention and be introspective, analytical, observant, reflective, and look for, just like what you said, those parts of ourselves that are awkward, underdeveloped, those parts of ourselves that have been neglected and have not been brought into the light, have not been given, any type of exposure, kind of a thing. And to recognize that these aspects are important, and to integrate them. Just because it's unfamiliar or uncomfortable for me doesn't mean I can't develop it. And I think, again, coming back to the way that we employ Kriya Yoga here, is that we use it as a skill or a tool so that we can develop these aspects of our makeup that have gone neglected or are unnoticed. And sometimes a lot of it is we just flat out, it's outside your field of awareness. We don't even know that it exists. And that's also, like you said, it's if it's not conscious, then it's in the dark side. And to grope through that and to try and find those things is an important part of this integration to become a whole person.
I like how you explain that, and I was just remembering that I work with a group of people, and more than half of them, complain that it's getting dark so early, and I say to them, well, think about what life must have been like when people had to live on the land, and people who lived with their environment and used their environment, to better themselves. And there's a reason why you embrace your outside world, is to help you internalize what's going on inside yourself, and like you said, become introspective and go within. And so this is a perfect time of year to do that. We used to say in the martial arts that the winter time, it's cold, so you stay inside, and that's your time to be not only inside your home, but inside yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And ironically, that's when all of these holidays seem to fall around this particular time of the year. And a great time to start to become a whole person, a great time to start to see this whole thing of darkness being the absence of light, and this whole concept of spirit is everywhere and in everything. It's one of the things I always think about is, in Buddhism, they call the manifested world Maya, illusion. Now, of course, the illusion isn't that matter isn't real. The illusion is that it's separate from spirit. And so prana is the light that passes through opaque objects. Spirit and the whole concept of the spiritualization of matter. And a lot of it, like I say, I mean, we're really not that familiar with the whole concept of apotheosis, this process of spiritualization of matter, this process of the individual becoming divine. And hopefully more and more it will start to become more mainstream. Hopefully as we start to educate ourselves as people and recognize that religion isn't something you believe in, that religion is actually something that you do, that you relink, that you reconnect, that you convert to a different source of sustenance, that it's not just smoke and mirrors, and it's not just this intellectual devotional mirage, but that it's physics.
You know, you bring about a good point about education, and I have to ask you this question. I know we got a lot of listeners that tune into this program, and they're probably already on whatever spiritual path that they're on, or at least they're seeking this guidance, and they want to learn more. But when I have conversations with clients or coworkers or things like that about, you know, embracing the darkness, you know, and things like that, it's met with a lot of resistance. So how do we, as people who are trying to embrace this spiritual path, how do we explain that to some people that's met with such resistance? How do we get that message across? And what do you think would be the best way to educate somebody who is so bound up in the material world? How do we educate them into wanting to move forward?
I think by example, by starting to see how effective these concepts are, that, you know, that being spiritual is a practical guide for highly effective living. And once you have a pretty good example, then I think as you start to increase in numbers, it becomes easier and easier. It's kind of like the 100-monkey theory. But it's interesting, I see on the flash chat that somebody checked in and said, God and the devil, really? That's worth discussion. I think it really is, because if you understand these terms as metaphors, to understand this integration between matter and mind, spirit and matter, that this is stuff that I really don't think that we've got really good leadership about. You know, again, because this concept of apotheosis, this process of an individual becoming divine, has an evidence procedure. That it's not something you believe in, it's something you actually do. It's becoming, and in order to do it, you do need to have certain things in place. The whole thing of working with your physical body, preparing the body for the invocation of this concept of spirit. And really, when you understand the concept of good and evil, or terms like God and the devil, you can start to see how these words might have at one time been more interchangeable. And then, of course, you start to see that evil is actually a archery term, as was sin. Sin is an archery term. It means missing the mark. Evil was anything that wasn't the mark. And, of course, there's only one mark. There's only one God. There's only one truth. There's only one number one need. And everything else was a sin. And I don't think we have a good understanding of what religion really is or should be.
All right, I have a question to ask you, but what we'll do is I'm going to pause and we're going to hold that thought to hear a word from our sponsors. So listeners, will be back with you in a few moments, and at that time, if you have any questions for Swami, I'll open up the phone lines for you at that time. So thank you. We'll be back in a few moments.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate.
If you are looking for a samadhi-based experience, IPD Kriya Yoga has the goods. A complete yoga program that includes the practices and the process. Starting with the separation from mother, including the labors and tasks of the hero and the return as a whole person. Practice makes perfect only when practice is whole. Kriya Yoga is a path of action, knowledge, and devotion. Samadhi, or total consciousness, is experienced by knowing and doing with devotion. Call or click now and get started. 603-929-0303 or www.ipdtransform.com. Namaste.
Well, welcome back. For those of you just joining us, you're listening to The Voice of Yoga, and we are talking consciousness. So at this time, I'd like to open up the phone lines. If anybody has any questions for Swami, you can ask that question right now.
I have a question, or maybe it's just a comment. Hi, Lisa. Hi, Swami. When I think about the dark, I don't think about the dark so much as embracing it, but just recognizing that it's the opposite to the light. And without that contrast, maybe I couldn't appreciate the light as much. And every time I think now about what the light represents, it's the culmination of all the colors, of all the rainbow colors are present in light, and dark is the absence of those colors. And so in darkness, I think we artificially sometimes have a lot of lights on, but that keeps us from taking the rest and the time that we need to go inward. And that's exactly what we need during these frenetic holiday season times. So it's almost like if we didn't artificially have the lights because we have the technology of electricity, we would go to bed earlier. We would be more refreshed so that we would be able to deal with the stresses of life better. So that's just, I guess that's my comment, not my question.
She's done. Yeah, no, that's a great comment. And I think I agree with you that, you know, with our modern socialization, we are somewhat insulated from our natural environment. And so I think possibly when people were living more in sync with the rhythms and cycles of our natural environment, this concept of becoming spiritual, I think, was much more apparent. And now, of course, we're just so inundated with overstimulation and just totally polarized on the material aspects of reality that we don't have a sense for the subtle and the sublime. And a lot of it is our lifestyle. Like we don't think right, we don't breathe right, we're not hydrated. The foods we eat produce cravings and disturbances. And of course, we're so sedentary, which I think has a huge effect on how we think, how we feel, and how we perform. And the more that you understand what we talk about, the physics of spirituality, this whole thing of employing strategies so that you can attune yourself to this invisible, intangible resource, this subtle source of sustenance, this concealed deity that the books talk about. But I think it's one thing when you talk about it, and I think it's totally another thing when you rebirth your body in it.
I just wanted to clarify something you had said earlier when you commented on, when you were talking about God and the devil, and you were talking about sin and missing the mark. I just wanted to clarify that sin and to miss the mark would be worshiping anything other than spirit, right? When you put something else in importance over your concept of divinity. And that's correct, right? I just want to make sure that we make that clarification.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's basically what the books tell us. There's only one truth. There's only one God. There's only one number one need, basically. And if it's not in its position of importance, if it's not internalized in your body as your symbol for validation, then you miss the mark. You're off point. And there's only one way that this whole thing goes right. And if you unpack every religion on this planet and you go to the original text, they're all saying the same thing. Of course, they do it in different ways. But the underlying simplicity of the whole thing really translates into basically use what you need to produce the feeling that you're happy. And, of course, when we do that, then we're not drawing from the outside world anymore. We have the benefit of internal support. There is a different exchange of energy that you have with your environment. You're not drawing off of the outside world. You're actually giving back, which kind of brings you to this whole concept of love, which to me is human perfection. It's our ability to unconditionally give. And, of course, the whole concept that if you love something and they leave you, you do not feel pain. Because what causes all of the pain, the suffering, is all of the conditions that we've placed on things. But to be able to unconditionally give really requires you to have a relationship with this inexhaustible resource.
Isn't that funny? Because most of your really good holiday movies are all about the lesson to be learned by the end of the movie is to give unconditionally without any expectation of something back for yourself. And I think that's a tough lesson for all of us to learn. But I want to just take a moment and ask you what you think about the yin-yang symbol, which is something that, of course, we used in the martial arts. And of course, it has the yin-yang symbol in itself. We could spend hours and hours and days and weeks probably talking about the meaning of the yin-yang symbol. But just to bring it down to its simplest form, it's basically your two opposites that are encased in a circle. And the circle itself means something. But these two polar opposites are encased in a circle, and they are coexisting harmoniously. So be able to have these two opposites existing harmoniously within this circle. But within each part, right, on the black part, there's a little white dot, and then the white section of the yin-yang is a black dot. So within each of those, let's just take good and evil, for example, because that's what we've been talking about. So if the white was good and the black was evil. The black dot in the good means that there's a little bit of evil in the white. And then so with the black part, the darkness part, it means there's a little bit of lightness and a little bit of good in the dark. So you can't have one without the other, but they also have characteristics of each other. And even that line that separates the white section from the black section, that also has meaning. But like I said, that can get pretty esoteric. But what is your feeling about that? You have the white part, and there's some dark in the white, and then some white into the black.
Well, I agree with you, and I also think that symbol is a much better metaphor and representation for what it is that we're trying to do, as opposed to the concept of good and evil, light and dark, God and the devil, because just like what you said, the one recognizes the importance of both, that you can't have one without the other, that we need each of them. And the concept of God and the devil kind of gives you the understanding of polarizing, that you want to separate from the concept of the devil, and you want to attach to the concept of God. But the thing that you have to understand about that is that when you're working with these symbols, you want to be working with the concept of a Trinity. And yes, God is the force that permeates everything. And the integration between matter and mind is where most of our collisions are happening. So I think the concept of the yin-yang symbol, is a much better representation for what we're actually trying to do. That, again, you don't want to abandon the physical body. You don't want to lose the benefits and the importance and the power that comes from instinct, appetite, preservation, and survival. That matter has power, mind has vision. And the whole thing is, you want to take lame mind with vision and put it on the back of blind matter with power. And that's what enables us to move forward with this process of apotheosis.
Yeah, it brings me back to those days of studying martial arts and talking and theorizing about this yin-yang symbol and how important it is, and realizing that whole circle that symbol is encased in is to be whole, and you need all those parts on the inside of it so you can do that. So I love how you said that it's a good representation. I really like that. So I think it's about that time we need to start closing down our program today. So I would like to invite you listeners out there to visit our website. You can follow Swami on Pinterest and Twitter, and of course on Facebook. And also available are the online classes and access through the website. Just click on the link for the online classes, and from there it'll direct you to Powwow, and then you can make your class selection. But do keep those comments, questions, and curiosities coming, because Swami does enjoy hearing from you. And be sure to tune in next week. I believe we're going to be celebrating the new year, I believe. So, Swami, any final thoughts or comments before we exit our program?
I definitely would like to wish everybody a good longest night, and maybe take advantage of this opportunity to identify with something that you might be unfamiliar with about yourself and start to bring that into light. And with that, I'll wish everybody a good day. Namaste.
And thank you all for listening to our program, The Voice of Yoga. This is Lisa Winton along with Swami Jayananda signing off. Have a wonderful Kriya Yoga kind of day. Namaste.